Welcome back to the Arbitrage.Run show. I'm your host, Donkey Teeth, joined as always by Kevin from Arbitrage Racing. What's happening, Kevin?
Hey, Donkey. Doing all right?
I'm doing well. It's getting cold here in Chicago area, so just bundling up for winter. I know you guys don't really get that down there in Atlanta.
No, I see that thing on your head, and I don't know exactly what it is. Like, what is that?
Oh, it's just a stocking cap.
I know. I've never seen one.
Turn the heat on. Oh, you've never seen one yet. So you did actually know what it was. Yeah, gotcha. So it's Lucky Maiden week here in Zed World. We've got a lot going on, actually. So Lucky Maiden, today we're recording this Thursday morning in the U.S. We got Lucky Maiden starting Sunday, running through next Thursday. And we've got the big zombie event. That was a blast. The preliminary, I guess, what would you call it? The first round ran yesterday with 12 of the biggest stables in Zed, and we advanced in that. So we're in the final four, and that's going to run tomorrow, Friday evening in the U.S., right?
Yeah, you forget how fun those are because we haven't had one in a while, at least, like the team type thing. It gave me vibes of that Larry Colmus event a while ago where you had those, all the big stables were in it, a bunch of horses you really never see face off all at once. So it was really cool. And then get to do it all again tomorrow on a grand final format, which is probably even more fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it was the Larry Colmus event without Larry Colmus, so not quite as good. We've got Zombie and Lucky Jack and Bob announcing instead of Larry Colmus. I mean, they're still good.
Yeah, I actually like that format a ton, though, because you get a decent sample of like only the distances in the funnel that they should be running. So it still rewards some horses that like just get a hot streak, but it's a good sample to reward the best horses over those 6 races.
Yeah, I like that as well. And what Kevin's talking about, because I know only like probably 40 people watched it at least live yesterday, but how it worked was each stable selected 3 horses, one from each distance funnel, and they ran, each horse ran 6 races. So our sprinter ran 2 races at 1,000, 2 at 1,200, and 2 at 1,400. And then same for the mid, running 2 at 16, 2 at 18, and 2 at 2,000. And same for the marathon. So it ended up being 18 races. And yeah, even though we started pretty terribly, we did end up winning the qualification thanks to Ready Set Boom won. What was it? 2 of the 6 in the marathon.
Yeah, won the first 2 and then just kind of coasted from there.
Yeah, it didn't matter after that. So yeah, there's still some randomness in there, but over a bigger sample, things are going to normalize at least a little bit, right?
Yeah, and then you have the markets on the side. Where I know you were peppering some of your favorite stables in there, finding some value. And I think you have 3 of the 4 finalists, some amount on, right?
Right. Yeah, I placed 5 bets. I'd never done it before on the OTB.run site. You guys should go check it out. It is pretty fun. It was kind of my maiden voyage. I'd looked at it before, and it's a thin betting market. I think there was like 0.52 Ethereum that was placed into the pool, and it's pari-mutuel. So any bet that I would place would obviously move the line substantially. So it's like you have to consider, like, what am I going to do here? Like I love Sunny Days. He was betting at like 130 to 1, but it's like if I put $7 on him, he drops down to 50 to 1 or something like that. So it's like I'd love to put 100 on him at that, but it's just there's so few bets that it moves the market. But once more people become aware of that and start using the OTB.run and placing bets, you can use PayPal to buy in, or you can send Ethereum or even Zed token to FUD Guru, and he'll credit your account and you can place the bets. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think that will end up gaining some steam at some point as people become aware. So Kevin, we've got the Lucky Maiden, as we mentioned, and we actually, I don't know if people know this, but we're not the most organized bunch here. And typically when the Lucky Maiden comes along, or any maiden, we're kind of like scrambling to see like all the horses that we've bred, which ones we want to run and which ones we want to throw into a sales stable, and just kind of like last minute throwing them in. And we spent some time yesterday separating the horses that we're going to put up for sale and pricing them out. And so we've got 40 horses now, unraced, all unraced, unnamed, in our Arbitrage UUU sales stable. And we've priced them all up pretty aggressively. You did the pricing on these, and you're usually a little bit more aggressive in the sales than I am. So we want to kind of share, since we spent the time to do this, that link on Haku, and we want to announce a promotion for this this Lucky Maiden, and also we're going to offer. We're trying to figure out some fun ways to share in our profits and the success of our stable with anybody that buys horses from us. So just kind of brainstorming here this morning before we recorded, we're going to offer anybody that buys one of these UUU horses from our sales stable. Again, there's 40 of them in there at varying price points. I think, what's the cheapest one in there? Like 0.07 or something like that, Kevin?
Yeah, something like that.
Let me present. I can share the screen and show everybody the Haku stable here. So from Haku here, you can just search arbitrage. So I don't have to share the link. Arbitrage UUU sales, or just arbitrage UUU. It'll pop up. This is the stable right here. There's 40 horses in here. So anybody, there's one that we need to price out here still, Kevin. Anybody that buys one of these, and you can see they're all kind of in the range of 0.07, 0.08 up to like 0.3 or something like that. And some of these have actually been sitting around for almost a month. I think we initially put them in here at higher prices, and we just let them sit, and we just repriced those out. There's one at 0.6 here if you just want to buy something to get into our raffles. So we priced them out, and some of these have been in here so long that they can now breed some of these fillies. But yeah, if you buy one of these from us, we are going to offer two promotions here to kind of make this fun for people. Number one, if you buy a horse between now, and you're probably listening to this, hopefully you're listening to it right away, Thursday night in the US, and you got about 24 hours between when we drop this podcast and when the zombie event runs. If you buy a horse in that window, we're going to offer part of our winnings from the zombie event. So the zombie event runs at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I think, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, on Friday in the US.
Yep.
And so we're going to offer 33% of our stable winnings in that event to anybody that buy 33% to anybody that buys a horse from this UUU stable between now and then. And so if only one person buys a horse, they'll get the full 33% of our winnings. If two people buy a horse, they'll split it. I can't imagine there'll be a crazy amount of sales, so you should get a pretty decent incentivized chunk here. And the payouts for that are $1,200 for first if we win that grand final tomorrow, $900 for second, $600 for third, $300 for fourth. So did I explain that pretty well? I know I'm kind of rambling here, Kevin.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, it's a guaranteed $100 giveaway if we come in fourth of 4 stables in that one. Could be up to roughly $400. So I think you did a good job explaining it. Anybody who buys between now and the start of that at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Friday, will get their share of the winnings. Yeah,
so it just kind of something fun to add where you've got a rooting stake, and you can tune into the zombie. Zombie is going to have a stream on his Twitch with Lucky Jack and Bob, and they'll announce the grand final. How many races are in the grand final? Are they making it kind of a double again, or?
I should probably read up on that in the next 24 hours.
We'll find out when they run.
We were just so focused on the qualifier, right? We didn't want to look too far ahead.
Right. Yeah. One game at a time, right?
Of course. We actually do already have one sale, so I think we can enter them into the raffle as well.
Oh, perfect.
So we had a sale a couple hours ago to No Kick Bloodstock. So if you guys are listening, you'll get your share of the 33%.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it'd be helpful if people ping us and let us know that they watched this and bought because of that, so we can kind of enter them into the raffle and know who they are. I guess we'll be able to see their wallet address by default, and we can just send out winnings that way. But it'd be good to know that you actually watched the show, and we're if our promotion is actually moving the needle for anybody out there, right?
Right. Yep.
So here, let me just click on one of these horses just randomly. What do we got here? This 0.2 ETH Z4 exclusive colt. This one's coming from Triumphant Jelly, our legendary stallion, and Jaded Genesis Z2 mare. So 0.2 Ethereum for that, just to kind of show people some of the prices we're pricing them out here. Let's see what we got at a lower price. Hopefully people come and poke around in here. .09. We've got a Genesis mare, pretty good. I'd say mid marathon on that side, and then lots of dots is a really good mid Finny. So you got a legendary here for .09. So yeah, go ahead and poke around, see what we got in there. And then the other promotion that we're offering here, we're going to give part of our winnings in the Lucky Maiden to anybody that buys one of these horses off of us. So what we're going to do, so you got a little bit more time to buy to be entered in that promotion, because Lucky Maiden starts Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time in the US. And this is going to be released Friday somewhere around 7. So you've got Saturday? You got about 48 hours. Or is it going to be released Thursday? You got about 54 hours. No, I don't know math.
72 hours.
72 hours. You got 3 days. I'm thinking of 3 rounds of golf. You got 3 days to buy a horse. And if you buy one, anybody that buys one in that window is going to be entered into a raffle for 10% of our winnings in profit, 10% of our profit in the Lucky Maiden 7. And then anybody that doesn't win that raffle is going to share in another 10%. So one person will be getting 10%, and then say another 10 people buy horses, they'll each get 1%, or if 20 people buy horses, they'll get a 0.5%. And what was our profit in the past 3 Lucky Maidens, Kevin?
I think we've averaged a little over an ETH, just kind of ranging from break even to I think 2 ETH, 2.5 ETH when we won it all. So it's possible we don't actually profit anything, but I think we profited in 5 of the 6.
Yeah, we won one of them and tied another. That's right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, we should have some dogs, but we just want to make it interesting for people here, add a little bit of fun to it, and we're open to other ideas. If you got ideas on how we can incentivize and share in our profits without getting too crazy here, we're happy to do that. But yeah, head over to the Haku stable, Arbitrage UU sales, check out what we've got there. And also, if you hit us up last minute to build your own breed or something like that, we'll enter you in these raffles as well. So, Kevin, enough about the Arbitrage.Run sales business here. Let's move on to what the people came for, which is the 6-gate. I have a hard time getting out of the 6-horse habit. The 6-gate extravaganza. We promised it on last week's show. We're going to dive in here on some Twitter questions about 6-gate races. And we pulled up some other stuff we found on Twitter that we found interesting. But the first topic of conversation here on this week's show is going to be a question that's coming from Sunny Days. Actually, we got 2 from last week's show here. The first one we're going to discuss is coming from our buddy Sunny Days Jack. And he wants to know, Kevin, have you been surprised by any of the results of 6-gate races in terms of which horse archetypes are doing well or struggling?
I mean, I think just the one big takeaway I've noticed is things seem to be even streakier in terms of hot streaks and cold streaks than I was expecting with this. I remember when it first dropped, I was pumped because we had those, I'll call it like Third Head and Creation of Mortals are examples I'll give, where I felt like instinctively they would be well suited for this because they have some consistency, a little bit of variance, but really high base ability, good preference of where they want to run in Creation's case. So I thought they'd be really well suited, and they just started out ice cold. I think they lost probably 0.3 each over the course of 4 days when they had that first 6-gate test. And so I was questioning things a little bit at that point, but sure enough, the next few cycles, and now the sample has gotten much, much larger for each of them, and they're really strongly in the profit range. I think they've both made probably over one Ethereum in the races now. So I would just say it's more streaky than I expected. I think intuitively I thought lower gates would be more consistent, but I think we're seeing that the profit share is so much more at the top, especially in the winner take all, that if you just have a streak where you're not winning, you're not going to be making nearly as much as you'd be used to. So yeah, the Creation of Mortals would be one who really accented that early on, where we were just hemorrhaging money to start, and he's cleaned it up a lot, as you can see on Z-Lead.
I think to a certain extent, even you weren't fully aware of where Creation of Mortals threshold of profitability was off the bat. And I know you leaned kind of heavily on ZSim And we kind of hit a point with diamonds even where you're like, these are pretty coin flip races when you get into, especially the mids, right? When you get into all these monsters entering 6-horse races, it's like you're chopping up that return pretty evenly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially at mid, where you have horses that, like diamonds is a great example, where you think like ultra variance, winner take all is going to be great for that type of horse. It's no surprise like you wouldn't enter it in a top 3 6-horse, but winner take all it should dominate. But what you notice is 6 horses and only getting 500% return isn't necessarily enough to be a slam dunk. Like diamonds has that ultra variance where it's going to win 15 to 20% of the time if it has that good run, regardless of if there's 6 horses or 12 horses. So it'd actually be optimized to run in like a 12-horse winner take all because the win rate may change from 20%, which is like a 15% ROI in 6-horse, to 15% win rate in a 12 gate. But if you're getting 11x return and winning 15% of the time, I mean, you're making like 100% ROI. So even little things like that, little nuances, I think move the needle a ton, which is why I can't wait. Hopefully in the future, they'll kind of expand the selection a little bit to where you can have that 12 gate winner take all to really suit that. So if diamonds types aren't dominating the winner take alls in a 6 gate, you'll probably notice those more moderate variance types. Like think like a freak is a good example, or like a new one, Big Lies, I think is a Catch Me Riding Derby new horse, where they have the variance to win in those fields, but they're going to have like a minus run 30% of the time and A plus run maybe 5-10% of the time. Whereas Diamonds doesn't really have an A minus run. It just runs an A plus run 20% of the time. So those types, you don't need the A plus to always win in a 6 gate. So if you have that good A minus to A plus run more often, like think like a freak does, you're going to see that benefit a lot in these winner take alls for 6 gates.
Yeah, okay. So you're segueing here into another thing that I was going to hit on later in the show, but we'll circle back to Smiley's question and just go there right now because I think that this ties into exactly my thoughts on something that Dan Chan posted on Twitter recently here, and I kind of did a double take when I read this tweet because he says that you got to win 17% of the time in winner take alls to break even in 6 gate, which is true, undeniable, but he's saying 99% of horses aren't doing that. And he's emphasizing that here in this tweet. And to me, I'm kind of circling back to, isn't he talking about 99% of horses aren't doing that in 12 gate? And we use a diamonds example, and diamonds is one archetype of horse, as you said. It doesn't matter, six gates, 12 gates. When diamonds has that A plus win, diamonds is going to win. So that's 15 to 20% of the time. And that's one segment of horses. But then there's this other segment of horses like Big Lies that you referred to that suddenly get boosted up in 6 gate races. So while Big Lies, I don't know, maybe is a 14, 15% winner in stacked 12 gate races, maybe even less than that. I don't know. You're the expert here. In 6 gate races, maybe that number bumps up to 25%. And I think that there's a lot of horses that probably fit into this different archetype. And then we've also got the variable added here of 6 gate races filling faster. And I don't know what's going on in like lower classes in class 2 and class 3, but if the fields are becoming diluted, now your horse that maybe was winning 16% of the time in 12 gate races, if it fits into this Big Lies type archetype, is maybe suddenly winning 25% of the time because they've only got to beat 5 horses. Does that make sense what I'm saying here? Am I reading that question right? Am I along the right lines, or am I totally misguided?
No, I think that's right. I think Dan was kind of being a little sensationalist with his tweets. Not that he would ever do that, any such thing. But I mean, that was definitely hyperbole. Mathematically, that's just not the case. I guess if you were thinking like all horses in the ecosystem try and race in C1, yeah, there's not going to be more than 1% winning up there. But of the horses actually racing in class 1 in these pots, like by nature, there's going to be 2 or 3 horses in every single field, regardless of who's in there, winning more than 17% of the time and having positive ROI. Like there's no such thing as a race that only has one horse being positive ROI. So I think it is a little misleading, but I mean, yeah, the point stands where it is different and people aren't necessarily running as optimally as they could be. And I think that's what he's trying to get at.
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes some time to digest like how it affects your specific horse, right? How to run them optimally in these new formats, right?
Yep, exactly.
And
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of it's trial and error, learn. I'm a big ZSIM fan for all of this. The one thing with ZSIM, I would hesitate to put too much stock in it until, especially in 6 horse, until that horse has like 100+ sample. We've seen a lot of horses burst on the scene, and like Big Lies is an example too, where ZSIM loves it. I don't think it's quite that good, but as the performance becomes a larger sample, I think the new Monty horse is the same one. Is it Third Monty or Monty Head, something like that?
for
It,
Monty, yeah.
yeah, just ran extremely hot out of the gate. And ZSIM only knows exactly what happened. But with that horse, ZSIM thinks it's awesome. And it's like a 60 race sample. So it's getting up there, but it's cooling off a bit. So I bet when we have that horse 150 races in, you'll see it settle closer to where it actually is.
And just to clarify here, because I think you worded it in a way that made it sound like you need a sample in 6 gate races specifically, but it's really just a sample at a distance. There's no difference in the time. You just need a sample of times, whether it's 6 gate or 12 gate, right? Like 100 races at 1,000 meters should give you a pretty good sample, regardless of whether it's 6 or 12, right?
Right, just the total sample. I just think in 6 gate fields, it might be a little more noisy because there's not as many times to compare it to. But yeah, 12 or 6, you just need a big sample, is what I'm saying. You might have to refresh. I think it booted you.
Yeah, I gotta re-sign into your credentials here. All right. Yeah, and I noticed that, and this is going to actually we'll get back to Smiley's question, but this is going to segue to our other conversation, and this is flowing pretty well here, Kevin, because there was a little bit of debate. Well, we should start the story here with us. Shout out to Ted. Hopefully Ted's listening, because he bought Pound of Fat from us for 7 ETH a couple days after last week's show when we gave Ted Racing a shout out. And he's really making a splash in Zed and getting a lot of attention. And it's exciting when stuff like this happens, because I think it creates a little bit of fear of missing out, which is always fun. But so Ted bought Pound of Fat from us for 7 ETH, which some people suggested was a little bit high. I think we had an offer a little over, I think it was 6.4 ETH a few weeks back that we actually turned down. So this was pretty close to our bottom line price for Pound of Fat, wasn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, the printing had definitely slowed, but it was one of those things that like the tournament structure had just changed recently, and it's still a horse that's going to dominate double ups and as they expand that. So we were still very high on Pound of Fat. But yeah, there's certain races I would race it in and certain races I would not race it in.
Yeah, so to hit on that, because I think Galactic, and we're going to get to one of Galactic's comments about this specific race that I just pulled up here, but I think he said, Pound of Fat has only made whatever it was, like 0.4 ETH racing in the past 2 months. And like you said, that's a reflection of the type of tournaments and all of these conditionals coming in. And if there was all of these, Fibonacci in class tournaments that Pound of Fat just absolutely dominates class 1 and qualifies like every single tournament, he'd still be printing close to 1 ETH a month or something like that if they were all these Fibonacci, or even keep on winning. He gets in the top 3 so often in those
I'll touch on that
races.
first. Like, what kills me about that is like, and a reason why we weren't going lower than that number is if you think about like, okay, 0.2 is by Galactic's terms a bad month and something to like scoff at. But 0.2 plus what you can breed Pound of Fat for, call it 0.4, 0.5 in the market. We'll call it 0.4. So you're going to be making over 0.2 per cover on that. So suddenly your monthly income is like 0.7, 0.8 a month. And I mean, if you're talking about like a 10% ROI every single month, like that's still insane at a 7 ETH valuation. Obviously, there's site risk and game risk, but that's the kind of revenue and return we were getting on Pound of Fat. and that drove that valuation.
Yeah, and there's upside from there if Zed goes back to more of those in-class races, or racing somehow becomes more profitable. This new class system is a success. Whatever it be, there's risk on both sides. But yeah, it wasn't something like where we would have accepted a 4 ETH offer on pound of fat, and we thought that's what it was worth, and Ted came in and gave us the moon from our point of view anyway. But yeah, well said there, Kevin. Moving back to where I wanted to take this with the 6 gate stuff. This race that I've got pulled up here. Let me find the comment. All right. So this was after Ted purchased pound of fat, and he threw pound of fat into that $50 6 gate race. It was winner take all. Not the best idea with pound of fat, since he's a really consistent racer and doesn't have a ton of that upside variance. So Galactic saying that he just can't win this race against Blood Duchess, Y2K, and Pearly Tour, and he's saying maybe it's 1 in 100. So I came in and I said, well, I ran it on ZSim. It's 1 in 11. I thought 1 in 100 seemed a little bit outrageous. Of course, maybe he didn't actually mean that. I don't know, but everybody started piling in this conversation. Alhambrin came in and he says there's no chance that pound of fat's can win that race. Galactic saying that it's frighteningly off by orders of magnitude. Dan came in and said that there's no way pound of fat could win that race. ZSim came into the defense of his system here. And I pinged you about it too, because I kind of got into the weeds on this conversation here, and everybody can go find it on Twitter if they want to look deeper into it. But I think that this is a great example of how everyone is still figuring out what 6 gate versus 12 gate means. So yeah, if you throw another 6 good horses into this 6 gate race, pound of fat is maybe going to win that 1 in 100 times, just because he doesn't have those upside runs, right? But when there's only 5 other horses in it, you've got Y2K and Pearly Tour and Blood Duchess. They're going to hit that wrong side of their U because they have all that variance a certain number of races at the same time. And pound of fat is just pounding those consistent races over and over, right? And some of those are inevitably going to end up winning. And I think that that's what ZSim is showing based on their Monte Carlo. And it's, again, this is not a good move. Negative 50% ROI throwing pound of fat into this race, but he's still winning 1 in 11, right?
Yeah, and I think like the point Galactic was making is correct. Like, this is a very bad race, both distance and format, for pound of fat to enter, and like a negative 50% ROI is very bad. But yeah, even to get a negative 50%, you're still winning 8 to 9% of the time, like you're saying. And it's just, I mean, at some point, it just becomes probabilities and statistics, right? Like you have all these U horses, particularly those top 3, which have their solid win equity, but in terms of like the variance, they're going to have runs where they literally cannot win in any field like 60% of the time. So if you do 60% to like the 3rd power, right? Let's do the math. It's something like, I don't know, 20% of the time you're going to have a chance where it's just going to be pound of fat versus 2 other horses, because the other 3 are going to simultaneously tank out of the race. So when you think about it that way, One Morticia is the same way. You could have a scenario like that. So it doesn't take a ton when pound of fat just always has that B- run to where the others just tank it out of the race. It's not like pound of fat was racing against 5 other billions in that race. If that were the case, I would agree with what Galactic's saying, and I think ZSim would probably agree. But the nature of these winner take alls is it's really only variance horses entering. So you can sometimes in a little bit of a way like zig when they're zagging and get that win equity. But that's where I think I believe what ZSim's saying here, just knowing what I know about those variance horses.
Right. And that's what I was saying too. And I understand the point. Overall, I agree, right? Pound of fat, it's not a good move putting him into this race. It's just the fact that everybody kind of piled on and said there's no chance he's going to win. He could have won this race. There's 9% chance. That's not horrible. And negative 50% ROI is actually, it's bad, but we've seen a lot worse, right? In 12 horse races or 12 gate races, you can have a lot worse chances. So I think that it's just, in a nutshell, this is a great example of how people's thinking is still attached to this idea of 12 gate, and 6 gate is just a totally different animal.
Yeah, if it were 12 and you threw in 6 more high variance horses, yeah, then you would see that happen, because it would then need 10 horses, 11 horses to all tank at the same time for pound of fat to win. But the probabilities go up so much more think he said orders of magnitude. Yeah, to use your own word, orders of magnitude up when there's only 4 or 5 horses that need to tank at the same time rather than 10. So the other thing to touch on, Alhambrin's point, if you go to like the sample here, like to the right, I think most of these are pretty good samples.
Oh yeah, they're huge samples. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I think ZSIM starts to thrive. You can argue his point with the third Monty one. I agree. Like, I think third Monty just started extremely hot, and ZSIM only knows what he has seen. Flames and other things would indicate that it's due to cool off a bit, but that sample is like 60 at the sample he's talking about. These are all like very strongly in the triple digits, where you would trust this a little more than that.
Yeah, you got 141 races at 1,200 meters for pound of fat, and that's the lowest sample in this race. And yeah, I mean, exactly. It's apples and oranges, because he's spot on with third Monty versus Felicity Force, but that has nothing to do with this pound of fat being 100-1 in this race kind of conversation. And I had the third Monty pulled up. Let's see if we can find. Here's a $10. Let's see. Third Monty's only got 67. So the samples get another. What is the sample that you want to see, Kevin, to really? Is it 100?
I mean, honestly, like, to fully believe it, yeah, 100 to 150 would be like 100. I would start to put a lot more stock into it. 150, I'd be like, yeah, that's the truth. And was 22? Yeah, I think 22 is the one that it loves third Monty at the most. One thing I've started doing, especially on these types, is if you start like a distance and it's running extremely hot, ZSIM will take note and overrate it a bit. But what you can do sometimes is kind of connect the dots between, say, look at third Monty at 2,000, look at third Monty at 2,400, and you'll see a trend where like the best distance is obviously going to look the best. But typically it's a kind of straight line performance shift. So if you see something where like it sucks at 2,000, it sucks at 24, there's not a horse that just gets like a godlike at 22 randomly. So it's probably somewhere in between that. So you can kind of increase your sample that way, as long as you're using surrounding distances to get a better feel. And we did this all the time with, I think, the Creation of Mortals, right?
Yeah.
It came out extremely hot at 1,000. At one point, I think ZSIM was saying
it was better than Billions.
Was like up here with Billions, yeah. And the whole time I was saying, I don't believe it. Flames are saying otherwise. 1,200 says otherwise. And sure enough, it's now with a huge sample stabilized well below Billions, but I mean, still very strong, but it has stabilized. And I expect the exact same thing to happen with third Monty, where it has no business being better than Felicity Force. It's not a huge difference, right? It's just the variance has really been hitting more. But if you looked at third Monty at 2,000 versus Felicity, I bet Felicity is better. Can you do that head to head? I'm just curious to see it.
At 2,000?
Yeah, go to edit horses. You have to clear your cache. Oh, look, there you go. Yeah, they're there. Perfect. Yeah, just do head to head.
2,000.
2,000, yeah. Right. So, I mean, exactly the same, roughly the sample. It's not huge, but 68's okay, 78's okay. But this shows Felicity is better. And then if you do the same thing at 2,400, I don't know if third Monty's even run there much, but we can look at it. I know Felicity has. Yeah, Felicity's way better here too. So that tells me that something's going to regress a bit on the 2,200 front, and it'll be more of what you would expect to see with Felicity being above third Monty.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, naturally, Felicity is going to be better at those long distances coming from Grandeur.
Like, this is borderline meaningless, but the 2,000, 2,200, you'll expect some kind of leveling out between the two.
Yeah, because third Monty's going to be naturally more of a mid coming from Monty, and third head are best at like 2,000.
Yeah,
so that makes sense. Let's get back to Smiley's question, though. I think that tangent actually turned out pretty well, and I didn't bring that up as like an attack on anybody else's viewpoints, because I do get generally the sentiment that Galactic was getting at, and he is right. It was just, I think it was a good point to drive home on the difference between 6-gate versus 12-gate is all. So hopefully nobody takes offense to that, because everybody piled on Alhambrin. I don't think there was anybody else other than ZSIM that was kind of in my corner of that conversation.
Yeah, it's Twitter, especially ZED Twitter. People always pile on the extreme end of things. So yeah, I don't know. I will say this, Galactic, if you want to do 100-1 odds on that, I'll talk to Ted, see if I can get his contact info and get him to enter those, because I'll take 100-1 all day, every day, any amount.
Okay, so let's get back to Smiley's question. Thanks for the question here, Smiley. So question number one, Kevin, is it better to race two horses in winner take all or top two or 6 gate races?
uh, Better in terms of like just projected ROI. I guess if
Depends on the
it's
horse, right? And the field.
field, yeah, if you see a light field and you can enter it and know you have like the top two horses, I think that's a fine strategy. Typically, I try to avoid cannibalizing ROI from each horse unless I know that there's just not going to be enough races filling that day to where I won't be using the stamina anyway. So I might as well. So generally, I'd stay away from it, especially in a 6 horse. But I've seen people doing it, and a lot of it, it's just fun to see your horses face off against each other sometimes too.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll add to this is one 1 pound of fat entering a 6 gate winner take all really changes the dynamic for all other horses in the race and makes it more profitable because you've got this horse donating in majority of the races run, right? So when you see a field that's got 5 monsters that belong in that race, or 4 monsters, you're not going to be entering in two because it's just not a good gamble. But if you see one person that's just diving in to have fun, which is what we need in Zed, but they're donating, then you've got a little bit more incentive to toss two in, right?
Yep, for sure.
All right, Smiley question number two. Which of the new paid races offer the best payout and chances at winning? Double up, quadruple up, winner take all, or top two? And so, before I kick it to you, Kevin, I mean, these questions, they are so dependent on other variables, right? What other horses are entering the races? What type of archetype horse do you have? I guess those are the two major variables. And then what is the other opportunity for your horse? Are these other 12 gate races even going to run, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Just depends. Typically, I think you're going to see wilder swings in the winner take all. So if you're looking for that high upside, but you know you might lose 10 in a row, even that's a good option. But if you want just to have some fun and low risk, obviously the double up will be a much more neutral ROI on both ends of the spectrum. But I like the variety. It adds a little skill to the game where you can kind of figure out what your horse likes. Is it a variance horse? Is it not? Analyze the field. It's even easier to analyze when there's only 5 other horses. And while it may be the same horses going at it at the top end, there's some good variation between race to race in those $2 6 gates. So adds a little skill that way. But yeah, to kind of answer your question, like you did, depends on the horse and depends on the fields.
And then last question, what's your favorite type of race for your top and second level horses in your stable, Kevin?
I mean, top horses, I typically try to avoid those neutral EV ones just because, I mean, I think they're fun, but even like ready, set, boom and a double up is going to be like 40% ROI. And while I'll hit those because they're basically required for the paid tournament qualifying, on other days I'll stick to the higher top heavy 6 gates because I think that just offers the highest bang for the buck. In this case, like the buck being using ready, set, boom stamina. So I think that's one option for the second tier horses. I think that the more level payouts are a good option where you can gather data with relatively low risk. So if you're a ZSIM believer like I am, then you can enter and just get sample and know you're really not going to lose more than like 20% ROI, or you may gain some money, but it's a good way to gather sample if you don't want to do free races. And it's just fun to have a little skin in the game. So I'd lean that way with the second tier.
Yeah, it's. I think the answers are very similar that you're giving, and it's all very relative. Which I mean, I guess that's why the game is great. Things are going to ebb and flow, and the fields are going to change, and the game is going to change. I think that these questions and your process are a big part of the potential demise of Zed, as we've talked about before. When you've got everybody trying to figure out like what is the sharp move here, and these are what all the questions we're getting, right? It's like where can I go to never lose money, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
And if everybody's thinking like that, how does the game work? And so we need these other facets of the game, career mode, seasons, whatever it is, to add another carrot where I'm entering these races not because of the specific race has a positive ROI, but because I'm going for these check marks on my horse's career sheet that are going to add to this long-term payout or something like that. Whatever these types of things are, that's what we need. And I think that that's kind of what they're building out. And the game is just, while it's complex in certain areas, it's too simplistic in other areas. And that's the tough part that Zed has in building this out, right?
Yeah, I think. I mean, you think about it. There's just so many like signs of promise with a game like this, but then there's just obviously the one fatal flaw. There's just one way to have fun right now, and that is to make money. And there's certain like third-party events that add variety. So if they can just ever like figure out some progression or some kind of other way to make you want to play the game, the game is awesome in terms of variety of horses and potential for segmentation, things like that. So I'm optimistic. I think it is a tough task to figure out what they're doing, but in Facundo we trust, right?
Yeah. We just need multiple games within the game, and that's kind of where we're working towards. Okay, Kevin, we're going a little bit long here, but we still got to spin the wheel. And I didn't even talk to you about this week's wheel, but I added diamonds to it. So, too bad. You're not going to have diamonds if diamonds goes. So we've got diamonds, Triumph for Hours, Supreme Boom, both returning. And then I tossed Triumph for Terms in there. That's a really fun, consistent tournament horse. Going to be really good for low stakes double ups, right? Which, as always, will split any down the middle, any profits and losses. So you can actually run a Triumph for Terms in those low stakes double ups and not have to worry that it's a really stupid move. So, Kevin, you still rooting for Triumph for Hours here for our viewers to get out of the lending pool?
I think so. Or I guess I'd say I'm rooting against it. So that means the listener should be rooting for that.
All right, let's spin it. Supreme Boom.
Ooh, close to diamonds. It's not done yet.
All right. Okay. A little bit about Supreme Boom. Where would you run Supreme Boom, Kevin?
It's the like 18 to 22 type. You can, if you want to go like more win heavy, you could go marathon with it too. But I like to stick 2,000, 2,200, and then 1,800. Typically, if it's a mid funnel 2,000 tournament, I go heavy on that.
In paid racing, what kind of stakes would you be sticking to with Supreme Boom?
$5. I wouldn't go above $5, but I think it has at least neutral ROI at 5 and can clean up pretty good at 2.
Cool. When are you going to be putting Supreme Boom into the lending barn for our viewers?
Let's do a little different. So coming out Thursday night, let's do like 3 p.m. Eastern time, Friday the 14th. All
right. And as always, you can go check the Supreme Boom, I think, is in Arbitrage Hands stable. Is that?
It's the main, Arbitrage main.
It's an Arbitrage main. So you can just pull up the Arbitrage Racing stable to see if Supreme Boom has been borrowed by somebody yet, so you don't have to keep refreshing, or go to that ZED page. Anything else here before we wrap it up, Kevin?
No, I'm good.
All right. Remember, head over to our Arbitrage UUU sales on Haku. And if you buy one of those in the next 24 hours after this is released, you'll be eligible for that 33% of our winnings in the Zombie Championship event that runs Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, I believe is when the grand final is. And then if you buy one between the release of this show and the Lucky Maiden starting on Sunday, you'll be eligible for that raffle for 10% of our profits in the Lucky Maiden 7. And anybody else will get a cut of the other 10%. So we're giving away 20% of any profit that we have in Lucky Maiden 7, essentially. Hit us up if you got any questions. Follow Kevin out on Twitter at Arbitrage.Run, no G. I'm at Zed Diamond Hands. We've got the at Arbitrage.Run account on Twitter. Come check out Arbitrage.Run. Give us a request for a breed or build a breed or a stud or whatever you want. And we're going to be adding that lending page too, so you can start to put in lending requests. Hopefully direct lending will be coming pretty soon. But Kevin, you have a great weekend, man. Let's go get him in the zombie event and the Lucky Maiden, all right?
All right, you do the same.
Thanks, buddy.